Welcome to Unlocked, the home of common sense that speaks Britain's language. You join us today for a very special episode of Unlocked, Pubs Unlocked, with Adam Brooks, who basically has become, in my opinion, the number one people's pub landlord of the nation. A rare voice of common sense during difficult times, a man who has stuck up for the beleaguered hospitality industry, the pub industry on its knees, and also has become a great voice of pushing back against the lockdown, the media hysteria, the seeming lack of scientific evidence that backs up the punitive lockdowns. And I guess you've kind of found like-minded experts on social media, and what a rare event this is. We're actually in a pub, the Three Colts. This is one of your pubs. Yeah. We're in Buckhurst Hill in Essex, True Blue area. So loads to talk about. You've been very outspoken the last few months. You've certainly locked horns with some of the media propagandists. We'll come to Mr. Piers Morgan soon. So let's just press the pause button and go back in time. How did you get into the pub trade?
I grew up in pubs. My mum and dad had pubs for decades. Dad took his first pub in 1964. So obviously I've lost my father now, but you know, I wanted to carry on the tradition and sort of go forward and take the family name through the industry again.
I think that is a brilliant part of the legacy of British pubs, that sort of father-son passing it on. But also, isn't it true that so often it's misunderstood that pubs are just more than places where you get a pint?
Yeah.
You know, pubs are the beating heart, not only of communities, but of Britain. I mean, nothing is more British than pubs. But why is it then that they seem to have been completely overlooked or in fact punished by the government during the lockdowns?
I would say that a lot of the perception of pubs, the bad perception of pubs, comes from people that don't use them. You know, we see, you know, a Friday night in Newcastle, you know, girls walking down the street, or we see, you know, East London, the same scenes, and it's very easy to portray a negative image of people staggering out of pubs, falling over, fighting at takeaways and things like that. I've been in the bar industry, I've been in the club industry in the past, but with pubs are the community hub, especially one like this one. You know, I have 20-somethings through to 90-somethings that use this pub. They use it as their, you know, public house. It's somewhere they can come and talk to people rather than be stuck indoors. Yeah. So I don't understand why we would be vilified so much during this. You know, the science, if they put the science on the table and say, this is why we're shutting the pubs, because this amount of infections have been happening there, this is what it's causing, we could understand that. But the science that they're showing us does not indicate that pubs are a problem. And certainly the graphs of opening from July, you know, it was pretty steady for 2 months, really. So yeah, we feel a bit hard done by. And, you know, the restrictions are just nonsensical. It doesn't seem like the people that are writing them know how a pub works or viewed what pubs were doing during July and August.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's loads to unpick there, and the one thing straight away is that, you know, I've worked a lot in the past around the mental health importance of places like pubs. It's the same for barbers and hairdressers. You know, a lot of people that come to places like this, right, they live alone, like the older boys, and it is their community spirit. And that isolation, we know, is bad for people like that. So that sense of coming together is really an important part of pubs, isn't it?
It is. And certainly I've got many elderly customers that use this, and I might bump into them, you know, outside Sainsbury's during lockdowns. All I get is, we really need to get back to the pub. We need some normality. And, you know, we know there's a pandemic on at the moment. We know there's dangers, but why declare us COVID secure? Why make us jump through hoops getting COVID secure and then pulling the rug straight from under us?
And I know, like, when looking back, there were some incredible pictures that you put in. Now, was that here when you were having these places deep cleaned?
Yeah.
I mean, you having your pubs cleaned, it looked like something off Chernobyl on Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like blokes in hazchem, suits.
Yeah.
You were like doing deep cleans, enormously expensive, and you took it seriously. Like,
Yeah.
this wasn't a flippant thing.
I mean, the amount of money that publicans across the board had to spend to get, as again, it's a council thing, COVID secure. The tape, the screens. I've got 10 sanitizer stations around this little pub. The fogging, that's the deep clean that you're talking, the fogging. And even though that kills everything sort of it touches, it's also there, and the reason I put that on social media is to show that we were taking it seriously. Any worries that people might think, oh, it's a dirty pub, or hopefully that just took it out, and it showed that we meant business and we wanted to get back to work.
And just so people can understand at home about it, I mean, what sort of wong are you talking about? I mean, how much does it cost to do that sort of deep clean on all your pubs?
Right, so the deep clean, the screens, the sanitizer stations, all the work that got put in was between sort of £1,500 and £2,000 per pub. And
you've got to do that again after you reopen. To open again, you've got to do that again.
A lot of the costs, we've still got the screens, we've still got the tape down, we've still got the signage, we've still, we've got the risk assessment that needs to be redone. But certainly to get back open now under new rules, and we will do another deep clean, so it's probably another £1,000 to open next week if we're allowed.
And in terms of the magnitude of that cost across your entire portfolio, what would you say you've had to spend on being COVID compliant?
Well, I've got 2 pubs, so it really is, it's between 3,000 and 4,000 just to get, to get where we need to be.
Okay. Now, let's look at the government rules like through a timeline and what that's meant for you. And if you can just sort of say why you think they've been draconian or heavy-handed or all wrong. So when the first lockdown came, I'm assuming, and I know from your social media timeline, you were broadly supportive of the first lockdown. We've all got to do our bit. I think as a population, we all bought in then, didn't we? Yeah, that was it.
I think the nation, as you say, as a whole, it was something new. We'd seen the scary pictures, coming from China, Italy. We'd started seeing the deaths rise up. The last night here very much was like, we're doing our bit. We was told it was a few weeks to flatten the curve, so we could see an end to that, or we thought we could see an end to that. So I was very much supportive of the first initial, really 4 or 5 weeks of lockdown, and the sense of that everyone was coming together and doing their thing. Ever since, when we see new data, we see new angles of what's happening, new specialists coming up, professors putting their 2 pence in here, and you start reading the different information and really realise that it's not cut and dry. Just locking down doesn't save X amount of lives. There's also collateral damage by locking people away. So again, the reason I'm talking to you today is to sort of stress, if you're against lockdowns now, someone like myself is not advocating, they like to use that, letting it rip. I'm not a let it ripper. I understand, and I know people that have died, and I know people that have been very badly affected from this, and it's just really to call for balance. We can't just run away and stop society for so long.
And a lot of people, including yourself, and the people who start to find each other, the Carl Hennegans, the Professor Gareth Sikoras, the Mike Yeadons, the more outspoken voices that were pushing back against the government line, not because they wanted trouble, because they were basing, like yourself, around data and not dogma. Let's actually have a level-headed look at the science. You were starting to bang that out on social media, and a lot of people were coming in, and your social media account just exploded. I mean, tell us about that and how it felt for you to suddenly become, you're a pub landlord, successful young lad, suddenly you're almost like a spokesperson for a COVID skeptic.
I don't like the thought of me being a spokesperson for
But
anything.
you were.
I mean, what I try and do, I mean, if I'm honest, I think a lot of the time, especially in lockdown, Twitter is my way of putting my thoughts out there and getting them out of my own head, not driving myself crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got a lot of time on my hands at the moment, being closed. So I think I think people would like to think that I do this for the attention. I've already told you today how many media appearances that I've turned down in the last 4 or 5 days, because I don't really I'm not comfortable being everywhere. You know, that's not me. I am a pub landlord at the end of the day, but I will say what I think. And I think there's a lot of people out there now that are realising they can say what they think, rather than being scared and towing the line of what is expected to be said.
And I think, you know, we were talking earlier, an important part of this was that these conversations need pioneers. You know, same politically, back in the days of Brexit or whatever, I was one of those, and you get involved and people are quietly watching, but they're getting the permission to start coming in, and something of a little movement came back. And I want to talk about, you know, I've been a journalist 25 years. I think journalists have lost their mind during this pandemic. I honestly think Sky News, BBC, Piers Morgan have terrified the nation into their bunkers. And I know that right back in June at the beginning, you were kicking back against this, weren't you? What was it that prompted you to go to kind of lock horns with a behemoth like Piers Morgan?
I've met Piers once before. He wouldn't remember that anyway, but I've met Piers. He seemed quite a nice chap, and I'm not saying he's not. The way he decides to conduct himself in the media that's his job. He's obviously very successful of it. You know how he's done. I just disagreed, and I took exception to the way that every day there was a bad number, it was screamed from the hilltops, breaking news. And when there was a better day or there was some good news, there was the same attention wasn't paid. And sort of May, June, July, I really was trying to get that message out there that, look, it's been a good day today. You know, it's ending or it's coming to an end of this terrible spell, or it's improving, not ending. So really, it was really just calling out those, and there's quite a few in the media that it was almost like bad news was a jumping up and down moment. Yes, look what I can tweet out today. And I'm not saying that because they obviously don't want people to die. They don't want to scare people, I don't think. But it comes across that way. You know,
I completely agree. I do think there is an obsession with this apocalyptic reporting, and it was the same with Brexit. It's the same with natural disasters. It's the same with terrorism, and COVID has been this kind of frenzy of terror and misinformation and propaganda. But I think you're dead right. Every news was a bad news day.
Yeah.
And I think it had a real bad effect on the nation's mental health. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I've had a lot of direct messages, and I think I spoke about it a few weeks ago. People asking me, can we talk? What do I do? I'm not a counsellor. You know, I don't want to give wrong advice to people. So it put a bit of a burden on my shoulders for a few days, you know, and I spoke about on Twitter. I don't know what to say to these people, apart from, look, it'll be all right. But how can I say it's going to be all right when I don't know, you know, they can't pay their mortgage, they can't feed their kids. What do I say? You know, I'm not a counsellor. So again, I spent a whole night copy and pasting the Samaritans number. And that can take a bit of a burden on me. Yeah. You know, I'm a very positive person. I see the end to this. You know, I praise people when they need praising. You know, and this will end. This isn't going to carry on. I believe that this ends hopefully early next year. Yeah. I don't buy into, and I'm not having a go at anyone that does, this great reset. I don't buy into the 5G. I don't buy into Bill Gates. I believe that this is a reaction, and in some cases a very much overreaction, and that's not to, people that have lost loved ones will go, how can he say it's an overreaction? But I'm talking in general, because there's people that have lost loved ones through cancer, through mental health, through suicides, that can also spin that. So we can look at both spectrums, but the problem is COVID, so it has to be dealt with. I just, it's about keeping positive through this.
And it's been difficult.
Yeah.
And I know, because I spoke to you about this, I know that how tough is it when someone like yourself is being approached by friends, strangers, but just the public, but how do I get through this? Because people are quietly having these conversations. I get that too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in our networks, Emma Kenny, these sort of people are getting that. And a lot of the problem with this, I think, and same with the conspiracy theory stuff, is that all of that is happening because there isn't a balanced conversation going on.
No.
Because if you only get the government line,
Yeah.
and we've seen with Mike Eden on the Unlocked video, and check it out if you haven't seen it, Mike Eden talking about the government's response to the pandemic. These things are taken down by YouTube. Cole Hennigan spoke about data, and the Daily Mail was taken off Facebook. And when that's happening, people start to think, they get a bit tin hat, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we are. But what you've been trying to do, I think, really, really successfully, is keep it about data,
Yeah.
keep it positive, keep it about common sense.
Yeah.
And that's the way to be.
Again, I like Boris. That piece in the Daily Mail yesterday, that he's lost my support. Or whatever. I'm just politically homeless now. At the moment, I'm not thinking about politics. There's not a general election. I'm more thinking about a nation getting through this. My business is surviving this. People keeping their jobs. Politics, isn't really an interest to me at the moment, apart from what the situation is now. And when we have press conferences from scientists flanking the Prime Minister, talking about 4,000 deaths a day, I'm GCSE level educated. I've not got A levels, I've not got degrees, I'm not a professor, I'm not a doctor. But as soon as I see that 4,000 graph, I knew it was wrong. I was shouting at the telly. My wife's like, how do you know it's wrong?
Yeah.
You know what a wife's going to say. How do you know it's wrong? It's never happened in any other country.
Yeah.
Why would it happen in the UK? They're scaring us. The 50,000 cases by mid-October, if we had no restrictions. I think that's been debunked by quite a few people.
Yeah.
And top, scientists, modelers. Why did they do it? Why are they putting the worst scenario out every time? Can we not have some good news? Can we not say, be careful? It could go to that. We haven't seen it anywhere, but it could do. But if you carry on doing this, it will definitely be lower. We never got any of that.
There's loads to talk about there, and that's brilliant. So first of all, we'll pop the politics in for a minute. I want to come back to that, because I think COVID is politics. Absolutely, fundamentally is politics. But let's talk about the numbers first. So there absolutely was a situation, was there not, where everything we got was doomsday.
Yeah.
Everything was doomsday. Now, when you say why were they doing that, let's unpick that a bit. Why were they giving us the Armageddon scenario? I mean, why do you think it was?
Again, I haven't seen the validity of the SAGE documents that you see spread on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, of where we must keep the population in a state of fear.
Right.
Again, I've never looked into if that was valid or or it's something someone's made up to put about. I'm guessing in behavioural scientists that will have been discussed, and it will be a tool to get everyone into line.
Absolutely was. And on episode 1 of Unlocked that we did in my study with my laptop, balance on some books, way back in June, when we had Professor Carol Sikora, who I know has become a buddy of yours now.
Well, he's a Twitter friend.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
never met Carol, but
we've had him on.
He seems like a lovely guy.
He's amazing, and we've had him on the show a couple of times. He said back in June, the government has brainwashed the population through stay home, save lives, protect the NHS. And that, as you know, that terrorised people into a bit. They were too afraid to go to hospital for routine checkups. They were too afraid to go to hospital for A&E.
Yeah.
But they had an accident. And that sense of using data to terrorise a nation into staying in their bunkers was almost too effective. It was too effective. Now, we can agree on that. I want to pull this back. I want to come to the politics bit at the end.
Right.
Because I think I want to build towards that. Let's bring this back to pubs. So specifically when the pubs reopened, what were the people like coming through the door? What were they saying about the lockdown? Were they supportive? And how did it affect your trade?
Well, I mean, July the 4th onwards for about 10 weeks, we had lovely weather. We had, you know, sunshine. It was almost like a feel-good factor. You know, the deaths were low, weren't they?
Yeah.
You know, the cases were low. It was almost like we're at the last hurdle and we can enjoy it in the weather. So, especially I've got a nice beer garden here. I've got a very big beer garden at my other pub, which is more of an outdoor, sort of, it's in the middle of the forest.
But from your point of view and from your
Yeah.
punter's point of view, did they think, right, this is it, this is the end, and normal life is going to carry on?
A lot of people thought that was the last stretch. I did.
Yeah.
Listen, I would tweet saying, you know, I'd be shocked if October, November, we didn't allow people to be at the bar, or, you know, just because you're following the graphs, you're following the data, and it looked like it was burning out or going away or had been restricted enough to do that. Obviously, the government in some way must have thought that as well, because they started dismantling the emergency hospitals, I believe.
Yeah. Nightingale, all that.
You know, and if they really thought, if the data was there that this was going to happen like what we're seeing now with the graphs, I think you would have seen those fully functional. You would have seen emergency, maybe sort of, I say, hit squads of nurses and doctors that could travel to hotspots and help out. Yeah. You know, and we never see that. So I think, you know, there's a lot of people that will turn around on Twitter and say, I said this from the start, it's going to be terrible in the winter, mixed with flu and this and that. We haven't seen the flu about from the data again that is being put out there. So, you know, is this seasonal? Is COVID now seasonal? I don't know, but we're in the situation where we are now, and obviously it's in total contrast to July and August with the feeling of the nation. Everyone's scared again. Yeah, because back then, I remember like seeing the photographs you were putting out on social media. It was like people were back in the beer gardens, your Sundays were packed, and I could tell. You were like, wow, thank God. You know, we're getting some trade, we're surviving, because the financial hardship. Let's talk about that. So I want to talk about your situation, but I also want to know what other pub landlords are saying, because you've been contacted by loads and loads of people in the pub trade. I'm actually friends with a lot of restaurateurs and friends with a lot of publicans. So I want to talk about the economic kind of smash of this. I mean, any publican will tell you, you know, when we was just shut down in March was a very bad month anyway. March, we might as well have been closed a lot of the time, especially here in my wet-led sort of pub, because we were allowed to stay open until late March, but Boris and other MPs and professionals were saying, don't go to the pubs. Yeah. So it's probably one of the worst months I've ever had in the industry before lockdown. So we go into a lockdown with losses, you know, and look, I'm fortunate. I've done well in the past with my pubs, and, you know, with the grants that the council grants that come through, you know, we survived the summer. Many didn't, and many of my friends had to borrow. Some people gave the keys back. You know, it was a real, for the industry, it was a real tough time. And people like the nightclubs and the wet-let pubs as well, it's just devastating, you know. Yeah. Let's talk about that quickly. You keep talking about the wet-led pubs, wet pubs. I mean, a lot of them might understand that sort of terminology, but there's a big difference, and we'll talk about how that comes onto the current or the planned restrictions, the tier 2 stuff. So tell us about wet-led pubs and what that means for the industry. So in the industry, a wet-led pub is predominantly drink sales. Yeah. You know, there are pubs still around that don't do any food, you know, and they are true wet-led pubs, but the one you're sitting in now, the Three Colts, it is predominantly drink.
Yeah.
We do a lovely roast, and we do a lunch menu and an early evening menu, but people come here mainly to drink. And the wet-led pubs have been hurt so much more. And coming forward, the Eat Out to Help Out scheme helped a lot with food-led pubs. It brought people out, and there's no denying that was a great scheme that Rishi come out with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like the wet-led pubs, the bars, the nightclubs, they've not been forgotten, but they've been left behind, without doubt.
Or is it more than that? Is it actually the fact that people in power have never really taken a positive view of boozers?
Right.
Where the working classes go to drink after a hard day at work. You don't want to sit down and have a sort of 3-course meal. You want to have a couple of jars.
Yeah.
You want to let off some steam. Same as like a lot of the wet-led pubs. I mean, they're the pubs that I've grown up with. I'm a working class lad, and I like to go to the pub to have a drink. And politicians don't. That's not how they drink. It's not how they've ever drank.
Right.
If you go back historically, in terms of legislation that's been passed, the Beer House Act in 1830, when they closed all the gin palaces, and they made people drink beer instead. Then during World War I, the munitions factories, they were drinking too much. And so they changed all the licensing hours, and that took a century to go back on. Right. I think politicians have never really liked working class pubs, wet pubs. And I think now it's a continuation of that disdain.
Right.
Because they don't drink in places like that. And there's a bigger thing. Do you think there's something behind this about actually this might not change? This is a way of stopping people drinking because we've decided it's bad for you. It's temperance.
Again, I'll go back to the scenes that you'll see, whether it be a London borough or somewhere up north where the newspapers and the media before, we've seen the videos, the pictures of people stumbling out of clubs and bars and pubs, and that seems to be the image a lot of people think of. And is it the image that maybe some MPs that don't use pubs think? Is it a case of not snobbery, but they don't know?
You're being charitable there. I think it is snobbery.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Benno, you're a more charitable soul than I.
I think there may be an element of snobbery.
Yeah.
But again, I think for maybe some of these MPs or these civil servants that don't use pubs, they assume that it is packed to the rafters with people, falling over, fighting. Which
and there's a really interesting thing that you said to me earlier, and that is, why don't they trust publicans? Why don't they trust people like you to run safe pubs?
It's a tough one because to be a publican, a licensee, you have to be a trusted individual.
Yeah.
You have to be licensed. We've all got our own personal license. The pubs have got premises license. We have to adhere to very strict licensing rules. The council can be honest. The police can be honest. You keep breaking rules, they revoke your license. So again, why is then, if we're deemed to be such trusted people to run pubs, why can't we be trusted? Give us the set of rules that you want us to adhere by, and let us do this. And the argument, what people will say, we're in a pandemic, people are dying. Yes, they are, and it's serious. But also, if pubs collapse, I think it's something like 500,000 people are employed by pubs. It's a little corner of the economy. If pubs, restaurants, clubs, hospitality go, you lose a big corner. The whole thing falls over. People, I get the tweets daily. It's just pubs. Keep them shut until there's no cases. We can't do that. You do that, and your whole economy starts to wobble.
Yeah.
And that economy pays for the NHS. It pays for your roads. It pays. People have lost this connect of where money go. How things are paid for, and jobs. You lose hospitality and the millions of people that work in it. What happens?
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about now, and it's totally connected, is this sense of pubs are bad. Pubs should be closed. A lot of people on social media, I agree with the lockdown. In fact, I'm going to enforce it. And I know that when you reopened, the Twitter Stasi, the COVID cops, self-appointed COVID cops on social media, they were giving you a hard time, weren't they?
I had messages, normally from anonymous sort of accounts, to say, shut your pubs, how dare you be open, you're killing people. Now,
how did that make you feel? It's a horrible thing to say.
I'm very thick-skinned, as you know, with a lot of things, but where has this mentality come that pubs, restaurants, cafes, the owners are somehow trying to hurt people or trying to cause a problem or make things worse? Where has this come from? You know, you could go through my tweets and very much, people be careful. You know, this is real. You know, follow the rules where you have to.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not someone, again, I said it before, I'm not someone that says, let it rip. I'm not anti-vaccine. I think there should be a choice. You know, it shouldn't be mandatory in my opinion. You know, people's minds, in their minds, there is a percentage of the population that think pubs are evil.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that comes from government in large part because they have been extra hard on pubs, haven't they, compared to other industries. I mean, you and I were talking earlier, this insane situation where they were showing live football matches in cinemas, but you couldn't go to a pub. I mean, who comes up with that crap?
and this is where I think, again, going back to people's perceptions, you know, I'd have people ring up the council or email the council and say there was 30 people drinking around the bar at one of my pubs. Council would ring me. I sent them the CCTV. They put the complaint in the bin, you know. But these were coming in daily. These are people trying to hurt your business by making up lies. Now, you know, if you run things how they should be run, you've got nothing to worry about.
Which you were doing.
Yeah, but you know, it's people's mindsets. Let's get him shut down. I don't want pubs open, so let's not.
Okay.
But going back to what you just said, it's all to do with the restrictions. People can go and watch football in a cinema, yet they can't come and sit with a few of their friends in a pub.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you was to put all the restrictions on a table and ask Boris, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that... He'd probably...
Yeah.
He'd probably find it quite tough to say it does. I can see some of the restrictions that they've done, and I can see why they've done them. But then something will counteract it. You know, the news that we've had in the last couple of days, if I go into tier 2, everything's got to be served with a substantial meal. But 1,000 fans can be in a concert hall.
Yeah.
You know, all mixtures, indoors. How does that make sense? And I'm not against, you know, I've got friends that are in the sports business, and I'm pleased for them. I'm really pleased, and I want to go and watch something. I want to go and watch Tottenham. I want to go over there and take my boy over there.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying stop that. I'm saying, can you look at that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When I can't have a mixed household at a table.
Well, I think all these things are about one thing. It's consistency.
Yeah.
If you have a consistent set of rules, people understand them and they respect them and they will largely follow them. The minute you get inconsistency, people, I mean, you go back to like things like Dominic Cummings or government ministers who are getting their leg over. You know, as soon as you get inconsistency, people are like, well, then the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's been a big problem. But I want to go back a little minute to that thing, which I find really, really, you know, troubling. This sense that during this lockdown, we've turned against each other.
Yeah.
It's Brexit on steroids. The sense that people are trying to get you shut down. I bet those people, they never even came here.
No.
They didn't even set foot through the door, but they were grassing you up to try and get you shut down.
And that's not just me. I will say that most local pubs around here, we have a pub watch group where we all speak. Some are restaurateurs, some are publicans. I speak to councillors as well. You won't believe how many complaints we've had about that pub or that restaurant. Or, Adam, we got 2 last week about you, but we haven't rung you because we know that wasn't true.
Yeah.
But these people are trying to do it to a lot of pubs, to a lot of restaurants, you know, and it's almost like the curtain twitchers. They want to catch their neighbours out. You know, how have we become that?
I think it's really, really troubling. You know, this, and I think we've drifted towards sort of, you know, totalitarianism or authoritarianism in a way we haven't ever in British history. I think it's a really concerning thing that what you're doing the right thing by trying to destroy somebody's livelihood because what, you're a COVID warrior? No, you're the Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
But they're trying to destroy your livelihood.
Yeah.
It's completely out of order.
Yeah, and again, I've brushed up on it. You know, not being open. This is hurting me, obviously, but because I'm not earning, you know, and I'm making losses. But what I wanted to portray to that, I'm a lot better off than most. I should be able to weather this. You know, there are people and other publicans out there that are literally down to their last few thousand of their bounce back loans or their government help, that if this doesn't change in the next few months, they're gone. You know, and I'm pinning hopes on April onwards being more like normal or being normal.
A big thing I want to talk about now, and I think everybody watching this will just be praying for some form of Christmas, some form of reward, something we can actually do. Like, we live in a society where we can't even, like, I haven't seen my parents in months. Like, both of them, you know, my father's 83, he's had COVID. His partner, Pat, I told you earlier, congenital heart condition, she's had COVID. I thought they were going to die. They didn't. They're alive. I want to see my family. People want Christmas. Back to the pub trade. What's Christmas looking like for you? Because look, I know a lot of publicans and they live all year for Christmas, but what's it going to be like this year?
It's normally a great spell for us, you know. I can't actually comment on what my Christmas is going to be like because I'm waiting for the tier decision tomorrow. Now, I can say if it's going to be tier 1, then Christmas will be 50-60% normal. But is anywhere going to be tier 1?
Doubtful.
Especially, you know, where I am, the rates are not great. So I'm under no illusions that we're going to open up in tier 1. If it's tier 2, then obviously there's no mixing of households again, and a substantial meal has got to be served to the table. That's not always easy, you know. I've got to pay a chef now to be here every hour of the day. So that's increased costs. We're limiting the market or pool of customers. You know, I've got to hope that loads of families come out and use the pub because groups of mates can't mix. You know.
In terms of, like, you know, what you're hearing in the manor, are people really keen to get back in pubs, or have they been scared away?
I mean, I speak to a lot of people just when I went and got us a coffee. Yeah. You know, when you open, can't wait, I want to come in with a family. That's great. Yeah. You know, even some of the messages I get on social media, we'll be in soon, you know, bring the family in. But a pub cannot survive on just families or households coming. The pool of customers is too small. And our, you know, waitress service, that adds to your bills. Yeah. You know, kitchen staff, reduced hours. As I said before, the amount of tweets that I got, stop moaning, you've got an extra hour, that's what you want, cancel the curfew. Well, I would have been happy with 11 o'clock. There's many venues out there that 11 o'clock is no good to them either. Yeah. But 11 o'clock would have sort of helped me here. But we can't serve after 10 o'clock. Right.
So you've got all the staff costs of an extra hour, but you can't flog any booze.
In the last curfew, we would serve 9:35 really. I would send the girls round asking if anyone wanted an extra drink. 11 o'clock would have, 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 and people knew if they ordered the last drink, it was a bit of a rush one. They had to be straight out the door at 10. But now all you're going to get is people trying to rush 3 or 4 drinks.
Yeah.
You know, and have them on their table.
And then they'll nurse them all the way through to the closing
nurse
time.
them all, but we've also got a licensing sort of responsibility. I can't let someone order 4 pints of beer and have it in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, there's responsibilities. You know, what happens if they neck all those, go out and cause a problem?
Yeah, which is probably going to happen.
So it's more responsibility, more policing from us to do that, and we're not going to get the extra money. You know,
one thing I've noticed, it's really hit me this time. You know, the pubs being shut. Because like back in the summer, you know, the weather was nice. We were at home. I mean, I'm self-employed. I didn't get a penny from the government all the way along. I'm not going to moan. You know, we got through it. I had a bit of family time. Look, I'm the same as you. Like glass half.
It could be worse.
Could be worse.
This is the whole thing, isn't it? It could be worse for us.
And it has been a lot worse for a lot of people. So I'm not going to sit here and moan. But I want to talk about. I've really missed pubs this time because I go to work every day at Unlocked. I commute in and out of central London. Ghost town. 3 or 4 people on tubes. You know, Victoria Station, like a zombie apocalypse. No one's commuting. All the pubs are shut. You know, you knock off, you know, you're working hard all day, knock off work, I finish broadcasting 6:30, 7. I want a jar on the way home and I go past all my locals and they're boarded up and it's starting to get me down. I've got to say. Yeah. Because it's like, that is where I go to see my mates, to check they're all right. How's your week been? How are you getting on? How's the missus? And it's the thing I think just gets overlooked in all these conversations is the community, the importance, the support networks, letting off a bit of steam. These are really positive things. Yeah. But why do we only hear the bad things about pubs?
I can't answer that, really. It's frustrating.
But I know you've been doing your bit.
Yeah, look, even, I think, was it yesterday or the day before, one of the sage scientists turned around and said, home transmission is the problem. Yeah. Pubs, they're cleaned, they're ventilated. I can't remember who the scientist was that said it. But by these new restrictions, especially at Christmas, this is what I wanted to get round to. So, is it 3 or 4 households can mix for the 5 days?
5 days. Thanks, Boris.
Lovely, yeah.
Anyway.
But not in pubs. In COVID secure. I keep saying it's COVID secure and it winds people up, but COVID secure is not my term. It's on all the posters that we've been deemed COVID secure. If household transmission is so bad, which they're saying it is, why would you push everyone into the homes? Why not think, you know what, we're going to let a few of the pubs do this. They can't stay open until past 10 or 11. Let's take some of that risk out of the households. We know a few are going to go to the pub. All they've done is they've cemented, really, and I put this on one of my tweets the other day, they've cemented Christmas Eve and Boxing Day parties across the country.
Yeah, and they've already, Sage admitted that home transmission is the issue, so they're just forcing that pressure cooker in.
Right.
It makes no sense.
So let's have it right. If and when it's a seasonal outbreak, if and when we see the graphs go up again early January, mid-January, who's going to get the blame? It's going to,
the public.
It'll be the public, but it's certainly pubs. Yeah. It's spreading through the pubs again. You know, they're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, we forced everyone back into the houses." It's frustrating. You know, I'm sticking up for an industry that I love. I'm not here trying to promote myself or my pub. My pubs have got big followings online anyway. You know, I'm trying to stick up for an industry that if that collapses, I've also got a terrible problem, and so has 500,000 other people.
Yeah. Right, I want to talk about politics now. We've touched upon this earlier. Walking through here, this manor earlier on, it's abundantly clear. You look at the numbers, this is your proper Essex Conservative, dyed in the wool, true blue, on your bike, blue collar, working class, Thatcherite, all those things. Right? All the stuff actually the media has talked about and obsessed over Essex man, you know, being so important to winning elections. You spoke in the Daily Mail yesterday saying it, you know, I've fallen out of love with Boris.
I haven't fallen out of love with him.
Okay, you still love the guy.
I've got a soft spot for Boris.
But you've had a wobble.
You know, people attack me for that. I like him.
But you've had a wobble about the Conservative Party. You said specifically, if the Conservative Party can't bank on the vote of an Essex pub landlord, they've got a problem.
Yeah, they have got a problem.
So not only that, but pub landlords, you've got your ear to the ground. You know, what are people saying around here about the Conservative Party?
Well, a lot of the self-employed people that have had their industries decimated obviously are going to be quite angry at any government that was in now.
Yeah.
And this is where I go back to, you know, I tweeted again the other day, I'm not anti-Boris and I'm not anti-government, but they can be called out and they can lose support. And I'm politically, if there was a vote tomorrow, I wouldn't vote.
Wow.
Because I'm not a lover of Keir Starmer. And at the moment, I'm finding it very hard to like what the government are doing. So I'm in no man's land at the moment.
I think there's a lot of people like you, and I put myself among them, and I know many of the viewers of Unlocked are saying the same thing. And send us all your comments out there if you're watching this. Get involved. Follow us on Facebook, Unlocked United Kingdom. The thing about all of this is people are looking for direction. And they're looking for opposition. Now, we don't have an opposition. In fact, you mentioned...
The media, I think the media is the opposition.
Well, the media, are they? They're starting to turn.
Yeah.
But Keir Starmer wanted the lockdown harder. He wanted it sooner. My missus is a teacher. He wanted to close the schools earlier. He wanted them to reopen later. Nobody's pushing back against this. We don't have an effective party of opposition at the moment, it feels like to me.
Look, you're right. I find it very hard because, as you say, I don't want to show too much love for the government here because I'm angry at what they're doing to my industry. I supported a lot of what they have done, but now a lot of what they have done I can't support. But again, when you look at the opposition, I don't see any alternative there. And I spoke to you earlier, the announcement that Macron has just shut bars, restaurants and pubs till I think it's the 20th of January.
That's right.
In France. And that tears me to another direction because I'm sitting here possibly being able to open next week, possibly being able to break even. I don't think we can. And then I hear of other business owners in another country very near that are closed for the next 6-7 weeks.
And if you sort of hear what they're doing in France, and we've seen already that where France and Germany led, we followed. Are you nervous as a public? And they might suddenly say, well, actually, let's do the same here. After Christmas, we're going to lock down again until January.
Yeah, I am.
And how do you plan a business if you're in this constant
you can't
state?
Plan. I can't plan physically at the moment. I can't plan for what I'm doing next week because I don't know if I'm in tier 2 or I'm going to be in tier 3. I'd be amazed if we're tier 1. Just through what I'm hearing with the criteria, that would salvage Christmas for probably the industry here. But we've got to sort of, I've got to think that it's going to be tier 2. So at the moment, I'm putting things in place. I'm telling staff, look, if it's tier 2, I need you in this day. This is what we're going to do.
All right. Obviously, at the moment, now there's a bit of a vacuum of political leadership on this, being led by fear. There is a pubs minister.
Right.
Now I know this because when the position was brought in 5 years ago, it was Marcus Jones, Conservative. I went and I had a pint with him.
Right.
The Westminster Arms. I was really disappointed because he ordered a Diet Coke. I thought the pubs minister can't have a softie.
You're going to be disappointed now. I know we're on the waters now, but I gave up drinking 2 years ago.
Did you?
Because I'm epileptic. Very mild, but yeah.
A sensible choice. I mean, don't get high on your own supply and all that.
Well, yeah, I've got 3 kids as well, so I don't want to put myself at any more risk than there is. But it's easy this is a job for me. You know what I mean? I don't stand there and get drunk in my own pub anyway.
Yeah. But in terms of the industry, where we're at, what the industry needs, if you were hypothetically to be I'm Adam Brooks, I'm the pubs minister, and here's what this industry needs. What would the route map to recovery look like? The
route map to recovery, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one.
What about things like beer tax? I mean, beer duty has hammered the industry.
Again, with the wet-led pubs,
Yeah,
cutting beer tax, which is high.
yeah.
I think it's a lot higher than other European nations.
It
isn't
is.
it?
We're hammered by beer tax. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know Campaign Against Real Ale that supports pubs like this that are wet-led have been pushing back on that for years.
Yeah.
A cut in that would be useful.
Yeah, very useful. Very useful. And that could probably dig some of the wet-led pubs out of a real big hole going forward.
What about things like some of the breaks you've been given? Were you given breaks on business rates
Yeah,
and
yeah.
VAT and all that?
And again, this goes back to, I want to be angry at the government at the moment, but back then they gave us the rates breaks, they gave us the grants, they gave us support in other ways. My staff didn't lose their jobs because of the furlough, right? But going forward, if this is going to be a long term, past the spring, there's going to need to be some sort of breaks. And I suppose if I was the pub minister, I would want to arrange a committee, maybe of all the top breweries, and come up with a code. Right, if there's ever lockdowns again, you cannot charge these people full rent. You cannot, this is the minimum that our committee expects. And I go back to the breweries and the pub codes. At the start, one of mine, I was a little bit let down, I would say. One of them was unbelievable. But they've all now come into line and they're all giving discounts on rent, and they understand that for us to survive, we need these breaks. The rates from the government, the reduced rent. That's the only reason why a lot of these pubs are still here now. So.
I mean, it's certainly an industry that I think has a value to society, not only in terms of the economics, the jobs, it's cultural and its heritage value for tourism.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people come to this country? Like my family, my sister lives in America. They can't wait to come to British pubs. They're a global institution. They've been badly let down. We need positive routes forward. And I know that I get so many messages from Unlocked viewers about this. They're absolutely in your corner. The public's in your corner. And that is why I think you've kind of really risen during all of this in terms of public stock. Not that you needed it. I mean, you're already a massively popular bloke, but you're speaking common sense. And the government needs a bit more of that. Now, I want to wrap up. We could rabbit all day. I know you need to get on with your business here. I do this with every guest on Unlocked during these times, and that is, if you were to deliver a message to Boris, on behalf of the publican trade, on behalf of pubs, on behalf of the public, particularly on behalf of disillusioned Conservative voters that you speak to often, what would you say to Boris Johnson, Adam?
Again, I mentioned in an article that I did yesterday, it feels like, I'm not saying it feels like to us that the government have subcontracted out ruling the country to scientists and maybe civil servants. That's what it feels like. We wanted to see a bit of leadership. I want to see Boris turning around and saying, the scientists say this, we believe this, we're going to come with a middle ground. We cannot be led just by... Scientists are doing their job to show the worst scenario. Because if they didn't, there could be, I suppose, lawsuits or claims against them, whatever. I just think now, I can't even say the majority, I don't know what the majority view now is for the country. Some of the messages I get on Twitter astound me with how people think. Complete opposite. But I just think we need balance and we need to open up now. I mean, even getting sports fans back in, this is a positive step going forward, and it's showing that they want to get things open. But with the pub trade, a pub isn't about someone coming in and having a substantial meal. And much of the people that are going to come in and support pubs and have that substantial meal don't want it. So I think it's, if I was to say something to Boris, it's like, we need to grab hold of this now. You've done some fantastic things, to help this industry and to help us along with Rishi Sunak. But the latest restrictions, it just feels like you're demonising the working man, and the pub trade.
Adam Brooks, I think that's a fantastic place to conclude. And I absolutely, totally agree. I really, really do. And I do think that the pub sector, the pub itself, the very essence of what pubs represent has been weaponised in a way against the working man. These people can't be ignored. They gave Boris an 80-seat majority. We've been put in power to deliver. Now stick up for the working man and woman, who pay their taxes, who work hard, and they like to have a few jars, and they don't want to sit down and have a 3-course meal. It's a basic civil liberty to be able to enjoy a drink responsibly.
It has
places
to be responsibly,
like this, places like this where you spend an awful lot of time, effort, and money to make sure you comply. And I think you should be rewarded. I think everyone watching this will agree. Wow, we could go on all day, but we're going to stop there, Adam Brooks.
Thank
now
you.
You've got a pub to run, or at least try and get back on its feet, so you're ready to open next week.
That's hopefully.
Are you taking bookings, or are you fully booked?
We're waiting to hear what tier we're in at the moment. So that we've got a list of numbers of people that want tables, and they'll be contacted, when we know what tier and what the situation is.
Well, you're on the central line. You're in zone 5. I got here really easy today from central London. I might bring the missus and the kids if I can.
More than welcome.
Have a nice little table. So look, what a fantastic interview today on Unlocked. Adam Brooks, the People's Pub Landlord. Let's sign off at that. Thanks for watching. Get involved in social media. Please follow us. Please share. Knock it around. We're the new kids on the block. We want to challenge the mainstream media. We want to kick back against all this fear and catastrophe that we've heard since the beginning by having calm, rational, data-led conversations with people like Adam Brooks. Thanks for tuning in.